Let's bring Chris Dawson in.
Kevin,
Chris, what's up, man?
What's
hey,
up,
Chris.
dude? How's it going? Can you hear me?
Good, man. Good. I'm Jared. This is Lisa. This way, Lisa, right here.
It's actually that. It's that way. Wait, that way.
No, look,
I don't know. It's that way.
This way.
I think he has it right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got it right. I always get it wrong first, but then I always correct. So anyway, Chris, dude, we've been chatting it up about you, man. Gosh, damn. So all right, let me give you a little backstory. I don't know how much you do or don't know about the sound here, but we started this show 2018 because we felt like there was a ton of music out there, and as distribution grows, it's harder to cut through the noise, right? And we felt like radio was ignoring so many of these killer artists that were out there. So like, shit, we can go live on Facebook and at least talk about it, right? So as we start promoting all these bands and looking into it over the course of a few years, we start noticing this commonality. Is that a real word?
Yeah.
And it's you. It's you. You're recording all these bands that we're like in love with, dude. And so Kevin reached out, and here you are. But like, we want to know the backstory, bro. Like, how you got? Where's the tone coming from?
Oh man. I don't know. It's something that's I love working in the studio, and I love creating music, and I'm lucky enough to do it with a bunch of bands that are badass. And yeah, I don't think there's a huge secret to it.
Well, you're doing something that other people aren't. I'll tell you that. Give us your backstory. Obviously, you're a musician. I can pretty much guarantee that without even having never met you before.
I played with a band from 2009 to 2016, 17 called Seasons After.
Okay.
We had quite a bit of success right when we started. We had like this cover of a song, Cry Little Sister. It was a pretty big deal for a little bit. And we went through like a singer change, and we really never recovered after that. And I was working in the studio, so it was partly working in the studio and partly trying to make the band work and all this stuff. And after a few records, I think it just ran its course. You know, I get a lot of pleasure out of being here in this room, just making songs. And it's cool to see them, like other bands get to go out and take the music that we make here and do something with it. And I don't have to deal with all the crap of like touring and stuff like that. I'm a little older now, so I'm kind of over that. I really get a kick out of being in here making the music more than I do being, you know, in the light and doing the thing.
But I'm 38 years old, and I 100% know what the hell you're talking about. I did it in my 20s, and I'm like looking at it now, and I'm thinking, there's something to like just being able to stay at home and kick out some tunes and not have to be on the road every night away from your family and your kids, if you have any, which I do. So I can relate to what you're saying, man. That's for sure.
Right on. Yeah. I think it was always my favorite part, even when I was in the band before, was writing the music and coming up with the ideas and the riffs and kind of getting it recorded. And after the song was done, I always had this weird thing. I've talked to several of my musician friends about it. When I'm done with the song, I generally never listen to it again. Even when we did our records before, I just don't listen to the stuff after it's done. So, and it's very much like that with the bands that I work with. I spend so much time and I'm so involved in creating it. Once it's out, I generally don't ever listen to it again, unless it's something I'm trying to support, like if, you know, catch it on Octane so I can tweet about it and help support the bands that I work with. But just to go listen to it, I feel like I just put it out in the world and let it do its thing. I'm sure that's kind of like how a painter or something is, any kind of artist, really. Like if they paint a picture and it's just out in the world and it was like a moment in their life and it's gone.
Well, do you feel that maybe somehow you'd want to make further adjustments to it then? If after it's already out and published, you can say, okay, well, you know what, that's what it is and that's done now. Otherwise, you're going to critique it?
Yeah, that's another reason is like when you mix music, they say the mix is never done. It's just kind of when you stop working on it. So that's another reason. It's like every time you hear something, you're like, man, I could have done this little tweak on this guitar. Or I could have done this, or I could have done that a little different too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 1,000 memes out there about that kind of stuff, you know. And we this kind of transition to what we were talking about earlier from your perspective. I mean, you were ass deep in that song. Every song you record, backwards, forwards, mixing, snare drum, the whole, you know, getting it all fine tuned before you put it out to where it's like once it's done, you just got to let it go out into the universe and kind of do its thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome what you guys are doing though. Like I've heard of you guys supporting, like, again, like you said, a lot of the bands that I've worked with. I think I worked with a band recently and I actually reached out to you guys because I had heard that you'd played so many of the songs that I'd done previously. This band that I worked with, Gears, they released the song Wasteland, and I was like, I reached out to you guys and I was like, hey, here's another one, maybe check this out.
Dude, if you record it, you send it to us, and I guarantee you it's going on the radio app. It's going on the show at some point. Like we're in, bro. You're batting like 1,000 as far as I'm aware of.
Oh, and not only that, but with the video as well. Like the video for Gears also came into the grudge match. I mean, what a great song, and great guys too.
Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, look, I want to get one more like question in that we were talking about earlier, because it really is what we're talking about. As a producer, and you mentioned this, like you were a musician, you know what it's like to tour, you know what it's like to go out, but like a producer kind of becomes a, you know, another member of the band, right? During that recording process, you get to objectively look at their babies, the things that they bring you, and kind of critique or help out or take it to that next level, right? Like, so somebody that was in a band that was the musician, what's the transition like for you to have that outside looking in kind of perspective to take these songs to the next level for these bands? Like how does that dynamic work for you?
So I would say that every song and every band is a little bit different. And I think that's part of being a producer is knowing the band and knowing the situation and how to, I don't want to say work it, but how to handle it the best. And you're very right about being like almost like an extra member. And I tell that to a lot of the bands that I work with is like, consider me like joining your band for just a minute. Like, let me come in and just be part of your band and help you create stuff. And some bands come in with amazing material and it just requires little tweaks. Sometimes it's hard being in a band because you might look at a song or a riff as being, you're like emotionally invested into like a riff. So
I said that earlier before you came on. That's exactly what I said.
Oh, so yeah. So you might play the riff too many times. You know, you might have like just a massive amount of measures of like this intro or something. So being a producer, you'd be like, dude, that is a great riff, but we don't need to play it that many times. We can play it like twice and like kick into the song, you know. And it's hard, I think, when you're in a band or whatever it might be to objectively look at that and realize that sometimes you need to cut some fat out of a song to make it what it really needs to be.
And how difficult is it though, depending on the client that you're working with, in terms of your approach and how you go towards that artist and talking about their work and where they need to make changes?
He's got to be a psychologist.
Essentially, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
And it's different with every band and it's different with every musician in that band. Some people, you know, you have to walk on eggshells with and be very delicate. And sometimes you can just speak freely and say what it is. Like, yo, that riff sucks, bro. Like, let's find another one. And weirdly, it's usually the bigger artists or the more talented artists that you can speak freely with because they're the ones that are there to make the best song possible. And they want you to be truthful with them. And sometimes it's a younger band that comes in that you have to be more delicate with because you're really shattering their ego when you tell them that, like, hey, we should adjust this, or we should change this, or let's work on this chorus more, or, you know, whatever it might be. I don't know that they necessarily take offense to it, but they don't know how to handle that, like, criticism, especially when you're in a room with your peers and, you know, a producer that, you know, you maybe want to impress or whatever the case may be. But we're all here for the same goal. The finished product, we just want to make a great song and whatever it takes to get there.
It sounds like the larger, or I guess the more seasoned the artist, the more collaborative it is in terms of making something that's worth, I want to say worth, but that'll be best put out to the world in its best appearance, its best attire,
Yeah.
as opposed to where it's a smaller artist, perhaps they might be taking things a little bit personally. And it's not a personal thing.
And also confidence, ego,
right.
And if the bigger artist already has some accolades, whether that's 10,000 streams or 10 million, they have that little bit of confidence going for them. But the younger artists, I'm sure if you critique them in any way, shape, or form, maybe they're also looking over their shoulder, like, are my guys going to kick me out, want to replace me? Like, there's a whole dynamic, man. I mean, it's like a band is a relationship between however many people are in the band.
Yeah. And we try to do some ball busting in here just because we want to make it lighthearted and fun. And, maybe we'll shoot down a couple things just so we can explore some stuff that none of us would have thought of. Our job in here is to create something that sounds cool. And man, sometimes it takes a lot of attempts. So there's no bad idea. Just start throwing them out. And, I think for new bands that haven't worked with a producer, or even some bands that have, my process is fairly unique because, we'll tear things apart, we'll move things, we'll cut stuff down, we'll try different stuff, and it's all happening in a matter of a few hours. And sometimes a song will transform into a 180 and everybody will be like, holy crap, I didn't even see that happening. And now we have this like amazing track, and it started with just this simple idea.
Yeah, and all the reviews of major albums that you call classics that have earned that title, you hear that a lot, that like, we came in with this idea and we had this shit and we thought it was the best, and then it changed and it kind of morphed over here, and it went to the next like stratosphere, right? Like, it's this whole new sound or this whole new deal.
Right. Yeah. And I wish we always hit home runs. I mean, not every song you do is going to be like this amazing hit, but I think as long as you're creative and you try to do your best with everything that you're putting out and recording and tracking, that generally everything that comes out is going to be relatively great. I would like to think, I know a lot of bands want singles. I think we live in this world that's very single driven. So a lot of times, instead of doing records these days, it's like, hey, we want to get into one song. Hey, we want to do one song. Hey, we want to do two. Like, it kind of forces you to be like, holy crap. So I have to deliver what's going to be a single every time I sit down in the studio. And that's pressure, but it's just not possible.
What is your preference though? Would you rather an artist come to you and say, hey, I think I have material for a single? Or would you rather an artist come to you and say, hey, I think I've got enough material for an album, or perhaps an EP?
I like to do small chunks of songs, like 3 or 4 at a time, because if a band in today's age spends too much time in the studio and too deadlocked on this creative, that a lot of time starts to get wasted. You're very focused and driven like the first handful of days. And then when so many ideas start coming around and you start to shape a lot of songs, you start to lose a little bit of focus. And so being able to do a batch of like 3 or 4 is cool, because you can really put a lot of effort and you can stay focused for, 4 or 5 days, do those songs, and they're going to sound killer. One song's tough. I do a lot of one song stuff, and I do enjoy it, especially if the band's got a really great demo and it just needs a little bit of tweaking. It's awesome to work and do one track or whatever. Records can be tough, I feel like, just because it's a lot of pressure, especially if it's for a label where you do one song and an A&R guy wants to hear, what are you working on? It's like, man, we still don't have the idea fully fleshed out and they want to hear stuff already. So
back up, asshole. We're being creative right now. Leave us alone. Yeah.
So if an artist, I mean, are you taking new clients? If an artist wanted to get in touch with you or get in touch with a producer, what would you recommend that they do to make that happen? What do they need?
I think you should just reach out. If you have some demo, I mean, obviously you have to have something recorded. So I think there's a difference. There's a lot of local studios that will just, I mean, their gig is recording bands, so it doesn't matter if you're a country band or a rock band, it's your first time ever recording or whatever it is, you can go in and record a song for, a couple $100 a song. And, that's that studio's livelihood. And then you have people like me and other people in the industry that we're a little bit, I wouldn't say picky, but we get to pick and choose the projects that we work on.
Supply and demand. You have to. Yeah. You got more people probably messaging you than you have time to do.
Yeah. So if somebody just randomly hits me up and is like, hey, what are your rates?
Yeah.
Like a weird sign for me of like, okay,
you probably can't afford
way to go, noob.
Before we talk rates, like, do you have some demos that I can hear?
Right.
Because I want to make sure that not only that it's a project that I want to work on, but I want to make sure it's a project that I'm a good fit for. There could be a better producer. It might be a genre of music or something that I'm not particularly strong at that would be a better fit for somebody else. You know?
I agree. And you got to make sure that it's not wasting their time, because if they're not up to snuff enough, then they're spending money and your time is valuable, and they don't get, if they're not good, I mean, maybe they don't even finish the song. Right. And that would just be bad for everybody.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thank you for, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Lisa.
I was going to say thank you for chatting with us. I didn't want to take up any more of your time. I appreciate you guys, for you coming on and chatting with us and talking to us about all the bands you're doing. Some great work, man.
Oh,
can't wait to hear what you put out next.
I was late getting on here. I was actually I'm doing some editing and mixing, the not glorious work of producing.
Well, look, can this not be a one-off? Do you feel comfortable coming back on and, not like tomorrow, but like in the future, man, we'd love to. Like we could do another 3 hours of me just asking you tons of questions about specifics. You know what I mean? Like, but I love it for new. We cater to a new up and coming bands, and also hopefully, I hope we're talking to like the 16-year-old kid who wants to start his band, or the 20-year-old who's in a band and doesn't know where to go next. Like, you got tons of information on that, and I'd love to dig deeper.
Yeah, we can definitely have another chat sometime down the road and talk about some of that stuff, because I do a lot of, I guess you could say, consulting. I mean, I do manage one band, SAUL, but I co-manage them with 10th Street, Scott Frazier and 10th Street. So, but I was the main
fan of those guys.
First started and we launched the project. So I think I do quite a bit of consulting work when it comes to the artists that I work with, as far as like, moves they can make and strategies to take, as far as campaigns and radio and getting signed and, all that stuff. So I definitely have a little bit of information about that. And I think it plays hand in hand sometimes with being a producer in today's age, because the more successful that the artists you work with are, the more successful you are as a producer. So
correct.
It's in your best interest to kind of go out there and try to make sure that the bands that you work with, if you feel they have the potential, make sure that they're taking the right steps so they can be successful. Given SAUL, those are great examples of bands, especially SAUL, like they were just a local band from Iowa when we started, and look at them now, and I was very heavy handed in that, and I'm super proud of those guys, and they work their tails off, and they're great dudes, and I'm super lucky to be a part of their team. But all the bands that I work with are like that: Gears and Etched and Embers and Take the Day and Any Given Sin and all
we're slowly pecking our way through all your artists to get them down here on the Gulf Coast and have them play live. And we've got a few of them. We got a few that we don't have yet, but we're going to continue to work on that. So Chris, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for jumping on this, man. It means the world to us. We love what you're doing. Please just continue to do what you're doing. And if you have anything that we need to know about, we love early access, and we love links to videos or tracks or whatever you got, man. So keep us in mind.
Will do. See you guys.
All right, man. Have a great night.
Good night.